So I've been sitting here thinking about a bunch of stuff. A lot of interesting thoughts. I was just talking out loud about some things. And I was thinking about how a person might assume religion is the truth. Not about the religion. I don't care about religion anymore. It's such a frustrating topic when it feels like people are contained to this little box and incapable. Like when you're first escaping religion, you argue against the religion itself. But after enough time, it's like I argued against the religion, then I argued against religions, and then I argued against the nature of the ideology to form in the human animal. Like, well, maybe there were a few more phases in there, but it's like a gradual process where I get so bored of certain arguments. Like when I think about arguing about religion within religion, it's such just a tedious argument. And I don't like the way that sounds when I think about the past. 'Cause oh yeah, this is the first video I'm making in my new place. So that's cool. When I think about my past mindset about things, I realize I am not like most people in my views, and because of that, my views are just like I know they're automatically offensive to a lot of people, and that's why I felt the need to start rambling on enough that I thought of making a video of it, because I understand that a lot of things. Sonny just sneezed. A lot of things aren't fully understood by other people, and they make me feel bad. As a person who's a humanist, so strictly, rigidly focused on the idea of caring about people, it frustrates me to think other people would feel bad because of me or feel like I'm a bad person. Either way, it frustrates me that people could think those things. So I feel like I have to explain my perspectives about things like this when they make me feel bad because of other people. I'm so far from feeling bad about these things. It's difficult. Like when I just casually talk about things like this, it makes me feel very unusual, because I'm not around a lot of people who think like me. That's a frustrating thing in itself, and that's also another factor of why so many things frustrate me in life. So many things, because I don't feel like I'm crazy. I don't feel like I'm wrong a lot of the time. I feel like I'm very correct in a lot of my views, and yet simply because most people don't agree with me. Most people aren't aware enough or think as much as I do about these things, waste as much time if they would like to say that. I waste a lot of time thinking about these things. Since most people don't do that, I feel like they're lacking in their perspective. Sadly. I wish people had that time. I wish everyone had enough time to form their own ideas about life. But before I lose track too far from my initial point, the thought of existence as like a thing that just happens. I'm imagining the argument of a person saying, where does it all come from? How could you possibly think any of this makes sense? Well, the example I imagined was, how does a snowflake form? I was just reading about people explaining that it forms because of the nature of the base chemicals, they have a process that fills. It fills itself through a natural process. It forms these crystals in this specific pattern. And that's how everything functions. Everything in a much more complex and dynamic way. The more complex the elements, as with a snowflake, it'd just be the basic molecules or whatever, but with a human, for example, we have cells, complex cells. The individual cells themselves are more complex than the idea of a snowflake. And yet they have the same type of systemic pattern concept within them. And then the human animal is this mutation of cells, all these things combining into this absurdly complex thing that can think about itself. And that confuses people, but to me it's still just it's a base physical thing that would have occurred at some point. Not necessarily, just clearly because we exist. Something like that could have absolutely happened, and it makes far more sense than assuming that there's some sort of conscience floating around in space that decided to magically create us and the universe and whatever. It makes more sense that the universe is just something that exists, and it's beyond our comprehension to understand the idea of something that eternally exists. Maybe it explodes and sucks back the Big Bang into the Gnab Gib, Big Bang, Gnab Gib. Maybe that's existence. Maybe we're just a little molecule exploding in some other universe. A firecracker or an atom, a bomb. We could be a bomb in another universe, and that just forms its own universe, and we don't know it. Maybe every time we drop an atomic bomb, we're exploding universes, and then whatever. Doesn't matter. The sense of these things are equivalent to the sense of just saying, well, no, except those ideas are more logical than saying that there's some big human personification floating around in space. But the idea I was making was that these things, these base elements, form and they snowball into what we are. And that extends beyond our comprehension of the base elements. It's not like a simple snowflake pattern that we can see. It's like fourth dimensional. It extends beyond generations, beyond our capability of understanding these things. But I believe if you had some fifth dimensional perspective, we would look just like a snowflake. And that's, I think, really just the sort of sad state of human nature, that we can't see beyond ourselves, and yet we're convinced just by the nature of our metacognition that we're capable of seeing beyond ourselves. We have the ability to think about ourselves. We have the ability to think about our thinking, but we're not beyond the nature of our animal existence. We're not beyond that in almost any way. That's my stance about religion, is that it's a new cage that we create to keep us as animals. It's an automatic cage. We create this, we have ideology, the metacognition. We form this comprehension of things that are beyond us. And then we revert because we tie ideology to every single thing around us. Death frightens us, so death becomes an ideology rather than something that exists, an occurrence, an end, a stopping of something, a non-existence of something. Like a link in the chain of the human body that breaks and stops the process from occurring. instead of us seeing it like that, we create the ideology, because we are creatures of metacognition, creatures of ideology, in this realm where all the factors that threaten animal survival now exist in ideology. So now we create things that can protect us. It becomes ideological ways for us to survive beyond the ideological death that we fear so much. I could even say it's beautiful to understand that idea. But with me being such an apparently ostracized person in this regard, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say, what I think, because I'm alone, and it's frustrating, because I could be totally right about these things. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to people. People have their things, their comfort blankets, and they just wallow in them. They just bury themselves. They give up on their life. They give up on their metacognition, the value of their metacognition, the value in being able to think above things. They give that all up because it's just become a new realm of competition, a new realm of survival, a new animal, a new subset of the animal nature. And it's as if when we disregard our ability to apply that metacognition, to apply it to separate ourselves from the addictions, from the capitalism that engineers addictions, from the suffering that we cause to other animals, other creatures that are lesser to us, because they do it to themselves, and that excuses our metacognition for some reason. We just allow ourselves to retain our animal nature. When we disregard that, it's as if our metacognition is actually making us worse than other animals, as far as I see it. It's like we have the ability to think about these things, and yet we deny that ability. We deny our capacity to benefit things, to make things better, to decrease suffering. We essentially indulge in addictions, engineering new addictions. The system of capitalism, which doesn't exist to innovate, it exists to innovate more addictions. That's perfect evidence of the way humanity is so depraved. Our very nature is not to better ourselves, to innovate progress, social progress, or ways to help people, to help life, to reduce suffering. Our engineering, our ingenuity is to exploit each other, to indulge in greed. It's like we found this crack, this pure, refined drug of capitalism. We've just given into it. And then we act like there's no alternative. No alternative is pragmatic enough for us. It's very disheartening to think about just how much we give up. And for me personally, like, I don't like to include my own personal views and things, but like, I talk about things a lot of things I use myself for introspection, just to learn about things, like my own scientific process. Like, I trust my own perspectives of things because I'm so skeptical of my own perspectives. But it's honestly very, very, for lack of a better word, lonely to have so many of the views that I have so strongly. When I have them all combined, it's like a framework of hatred for the human animal, but not the human animal that we have the capability of being. It's hatred for the human animal that we are, that we choose to be. I almost can't even say we're choosing these things. We are just an animal, just trapped in ideas. We're subjects of propaganda. I can't expect everyone to be able to think outside of these things. We're just addicted to things. As much as I say all this, I'm addicted to things. I give in to things. I'm about to go outside for a cigarette in a minute, I'm sure. I quit over and over again. I don't care. And I'm a vegan now. Don't eat meat, don't eat any animal products. But I fail. I fail, and I really hate that fact. I really hate that fact. I despise that fact because it's a value to me. And then I can watch myself fail. I can be failing, and I understand it. I'm just like, this is normal. Like, I understand it. I'm gonna sneak. I don't want people to know. I know I'm gonna fail today. But it's destroying my own values. It's destroying what I believe matters. To fail like that. Our culture makes these things so easy. But that shouldn't matter if I'm capable of thinking above these things, right? I should be able to think above the addictions. But it's not like that. My view, I try my best to remove all hypocrisy from my views. I understand I'm a flawed animal. I understand I'm just a complete failure in a lot of ways. That doesn't destroy my ideas. My ideas stand on their own. I talk about the human animal because I'm a flawed human animal. I fail at a lot of things, all the time. A few times I think I do something good, it's rare. It's rare. Very rare. But the values I hold are that we should try. We should try for those things. We should try. We should always work toward perfection and not just some petty, I just cleaned the house, just cleaned my place tonight. I was getting my OCD urges, my obsessively, compulsively disordered urges to sweep all the floors and make the place all clean, and I did a lot of that. But that's petty, that's aesthetic nonsense. What we should be focusing our perfectionism on social, on the true factors of society, on engineering better systems, of programming better systems, whatever it is that we can do. Because these things aren't possible. Whoever says communism is impossible is just a fucking idiot. If you think communism is impossible, and because you've seen the history of it, you're either ignoring the premise of communism, or you're ignoring that the premise of communism is a very open concept that can extend into a massive number of areas. It's the idea of deleting money from the equation. And I don't see why it's impossible to imagine being able to engineer something better. We make video games that have competitive online multiplayer, and every week there'll be new patches to fix the balance issues. This character's too strong, their move is getting abused, this one's too weak. Buffing and nerfing all these different traits. But we can do that, and eventually things get surprisingly balanced when you focus on things like that, almost like the developers work as kind of a government over the systems that they control. Oh, I just got horrified that my microphone wasn't set up, because I changed some things on my computer and I was positive that it wasn't set up for some reason. So I don't know if it is right now, but yeah, I should actually stop this video just so I can depressingly check if it is recording anything I've been saying, because that would really fucking suck to talk for 22 minutes about some really in-depth topics and thoughts, and then to only realize that none of it fucking mattered. But, I mean, I'm here. I'm not gonna suddenly forget these things as far as I know. I'll be here to repeat them all, because these things are not simply ideas to me. They're solid objects in my brain. As long as my brain exists, I suppose they'll probably be there. And all kinds of things can happen with that. Tumors and stuff, they'll fuck me up and destroy everything I care about, but that's for another day. That is indeed for another day. Yeah, and also, since I forgot where I was going, I could probably remember, but I'm kind of still afraid that this isn't recording, so I'm going to have to check that.